Hi everyone, blessings in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I had something short to share with someone today. I pray that this would bless you and encourage you in the Lord. So what I had been hearing is I gave those talents to you, not to them. So they don't have to answer for them, you do. If you listen to everyone else's opinion, it would ultimately paralyze you. And the Lord had given me an example to illustrate this point from when I did some training some time ago. I took a triathlon training course, and I was more comfortable with the cycling and the running part of the course. It was the swimming that I wanted to work on the most, just because I was trying to find that balance of having the right technique where I could swim for a longer period of time without just completely wearing myself out. And I was trying to get the breathing part right. So getting my technique right, and then also getting the breathing part right. And so when I took this course, on the very first day, you started it was at the YMCA, and they had you swimming laps. So on day one, they timed everyone for 5 minutes to see how many laps you could swim in 5 minutes. And that gave us a baseline so we could see how much progress we made throughout the course. And then at the end of the course, we repeated that test to see if the number of laps we could do in 5 minutes had increased. Well, during the swimming coaching portion, I had several different coaches that I was working with, and it seemed as if they all had different suggestions. So one would say you need to hold your head down, the other would say you need to hold your head up, one would say be more submerged underwater, the other would say keep your feet on the surface as you're kicking. So there were so many things after taking all the advice in that I had going in my head, that I felt like when I was trying to swim, I was thinking, okay, how do I hold my head, this way or this way? How do I hold my arm, this way or this way? And when do I breathe? And it was so much to take in that by the end of the course, when we did our retest, I ended up swimming slower than I did at the start of the course. Because of all those voices that were in my head, it almost made it more difficult for me just to be and just to swim. And so after all of this had happened, I had talked with a friend about it, a coworker who also happened to do a little swim coaching on the side. And one day we had gone swimming together, and she watched my technique, and she just looked at me and said, "Mary, there's nothing wrong with your swimming technique. You just need to swim more." And that brought me the freedom that I needed to realize, you know what? I don't need to overthink this. I just need to get out there and swim. That's how I'm going to make the improvements I need to make. That's how I'm going to get stronger as a swimmer, better as a swimmer, get the breathing part right. It's just by doing it, just getting out there and doing it. And so some of you have been in that place where you almost have been paralyzed by all the different voices that you've been listening to that are telling you do it this way, or this is the right way to do it. And what the Lord is saying is that you just need to get out there and swim. You already know how to swim. You already know how to do it. You just need to get out there and go. And as you go, you are going to get stronger. You're going to get better. You're going to be able to do this thing. He had also shared with me about the parable of the talents, and we find this in Matthew chapter 25, starting at verse 14. So I'm going to read a little there. I'm reading from the Berean Study Bible here. "For it is just like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted them with his possessions. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his own ability." That's important. Each according to his own ability. And he went on his journey. And something that's important to know here is that I used to think a talent was a coin, but a talent is actually a unit of measurement of weight. So a talent is equal to about 75 pounds of silver. 75 pounds of silver. So this is no small amount of cash. It used to be with money that coins were actually worth something in and of themselves, meaning they were made out of gold, they were made out of silver, and even apart from the fact that they were money, they were worth something because of the metal that they were made out of. And continuing on, the servant who had received the 5 talents went at once and put them to work and gained 5 more. Likewise, the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more, but the servant who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. So when it says the servant went out and put them to work, those words in the Greek, went out, implies that he went on a journey. He took a journey. So it's from the word meaning passageway. So it means that he went on his way, he took a journey, he departed, he traveled. And it can mean like to go from one port to another. So to be transported like by ship, one port to another. So when he went out, he actually went on a journey to go make money for his master. And he went out and he traded. So that means he probably, back then trade was done in port cities and it was mostly done by ship. So he would have gone out and he would have taken that money, and we don't know exactly what he did or what kind of trade he was involved in. It could be he went out and bought cloth and then he started a clothing making business. He sold that. He took the money and he bought some land and he bought some sheep, or he grew some crops and he sold those. So back then there wasn't the stock market, right? But if you wanted to take money and make more, you did that through trade. And it would have involved travel. It would have involved a lot of hard work. And it says, after a long time, the master of those servants returned to settle accounts with them. The servant who had received the 5 talents came and presented 5 more. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. It's starting to rain out here. The servant who had received the 2 talents also came and said, Master, you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. So he basically says the same thing, enter into your master's joy. Finally, the servant who had received the 1 talent came and said, Master, I knew that you are a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what belongs to you. And the master says, you wicked, lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and on my return, I would have received it back with interest. And he basically cast out the servant. And so we see with the 2 servants, the 2 good and faithful servants, that when the master returns, they come to the master and they say, Master, you entrusted me. You entrusted me. So they recognized that the master had entrusted his own talents with them. The third servant does not say that. The third servant says, Master, I knew that you are a hard man. And what does this imply? This implies relationship. So the first two servants had the type of relationship with their master that even if their master was gone, they still had their master's best interest at heart. They still recognized what it meant for their master to entrust them with those talents. And even though it wasn't their own money, they treated it as if it was. They acted on the master's behalf, and they said to themselves, what would the master do if he were here? How would he manage this money? What would he want us to do with it? Well, he would want us to go out and produce something with it. Go out and make use of it. And it implies that these two servants cared for the master, and they also took ownership of what the master had given them. And it's like that if you think of someone who is invested in the company that they work for. You can learn a lot about how a person really views their boss or their company if you look at their behavior when the boss is on an extended trip and how they're acting. If they are really invested in that company, if they really care about their boss, then even if their boss is gone, they're going to do the best they can for that, to make that company succeed, to make it successful. But an employee who is just doing the minimum and just has their own best interest at heart, they're just going to try to do the minimum that they can get away with. They're not going to act in the same manner that someone who owned the company would. And you know, when I first read this parable back when I became a believer, I almost felt sorry for the third servant. I thought that he just basically didn't have a whole lot, and he was scared, and he went and hid, and now he was being thrown out. And I almost felt sorry for him, but it's because I didn't realize how wicked this servant was being towards his master. And in essence, he was saying, you are a horrible boss. You are just a terrible, mean, harsh boss. You ask for way too much. You're super demanding, and you don't give us what we need to do our job. And he basically accuses his master of that when the master comes to hold him to account. Instead of acknowledging what he's been entrusted with and what he's done with it, he accuses the master of being basically like a slave driver in Egypt. Like, you're asking for more bricks, but you won't give us more straw. Like, you're just a bad person. You're a bad master. So he's blaming the master and saying, I did nothing with what you gave me, because he never took ownership of it. So basically, he's like, threw it in the backyard, and he's like, oh, you're back? Oh, great. Well, here, you can have back what's yours. He basically throws it at him. Here, just take back what's yours. And it just shows the type of relationship. So when it talks about him being cast out into utter darkness, it's because he never was in it in the first place. He never had that type of relationship with his master. But the first two servants were excited. I believe that they were excited. Like, this would have been years later and they would have put in all this hard work. And when the master returns, they can't wait to show him what they've made with what he has given them. So I believe they would have just like ran in with a big smile on their face and bowed before the master and been so excited to show him, here's what I've done, here's what I've produced with what you gave me. And it says, then the master gave them more. And that's true for us as well. When we take what the Lord has given us, we go out and we use it to produce, we come back with joy and we have something to lay at his feet. So he has given something to us. We take it, we make more with it, and we come and lay it at his feet. And then he says to us, well done. And then he says to us, share in your master's joy. So if we go out and faithfully work with the things that he has given us, then we also will share in his joy. Some of us are failing to do the things that God has called us to because of our fear of man. But we're not going to have to answer to other people. Did those people give you those talents? Did those people give you that silver? Or was it the Lord? So who should you be worried about? Whose is it in the first place? If God has given you certain gifts or talents, they belong to him. So it is him that you will answer to. So it doesn't matter what other people are saying. That's not going to be a good excuse, because we will have to give account to the Lord about what we did with the things that he gave us. And it's not going to fly when we try to say, Lord, I did nothing with what you gave me because of what other people said, or because of other people's opinions of what I was doing, or because of what other people thought about it. They didn't give it to us, and they're not the ones we have to answer to. We have to answer to the Lord, because what he gave us belongs to him, and we're going to have to give an account of what we did with it when he returns. The Lord also says, do you think I entrusted it to you without also giving you the power and ability you needed to complete it? Because the measure of wealth that he gave them was in proportion to the measure of the power or ability he had given them. So the final servant accused his master of being unfair. But we know that's not true, because this was already established in the beginning, because it had already said that he gave them according to their own ability. He gave to each according to his own ability. He gave to each according to his own ability. So it had already been established that he was being fair in his actions toward his servants. He was not asking of them more than he had already given them, than they already had the ability to do, okay? So they already had a certain amount of ability that he knew in advance. When he was deciding how much silver to weigh out to them, he weighed it out according to their ability. So he was being fair in that. He wasn't asking them to do more than they were capable of. He was a good and a fair master, and he was asking them to do according to their own ability that he already knew in advance that they had. And so that's important to know. God is not a mean taskmaster. He does not ask more of us than we have the ability to do. And that word for ability is that same word, comes from that root dunamis, ability, power to do something. God wasn't asking above what they had the ability to produce. He doesn't ask of you more than he's already placed in you. In other words, the good servants took up their master's cause as their own. Servant 1 and 2 were working to benefit the master. Servant 3 focused on self-preservation. The first two servants were willing to take risks, because with trade and investments, you have to take risks in order to gain, and you have to do work. And ultimately, the master judged the third servant according to his own words. So he said, if you thought I was such a demanding master, then you knew I was coming back, then should you not have gone out and at least done something? If you were so lazy that you wouldn't go on a journey and trade or work with what I gave you, then shouldn't you have at least gone to the bank? Because going to the bank is a lower risk thing, right? We don't have to, when we put money in the bank, it's not a risky thing like it is when we're making investments. So he's saying you could have at least done the minimum, gone to the bank, put in the money, and earn interest, which is a passive thing. You don't have to work to earn interest. It just happens as your money sits there in the bank. So what he was saying is, if you knew I was such a harsh master, should you not have at least done the minimum of what you could with what I gave you? And all that to say, friends, that the Lord wants us to take what he's given us and to make something with it so that when he returns, we have something to lay at his feet so that we can share in his joy. So that we can share in his joy. He wants us to know that the things he has given us, like, we're a part of this thing. We're a part of the kingdom. We're not separate from it. We're not separate from it. We're not separate from him, but we get to share as we produce on his behalf and bring those things and lay them at his feet. We will also be able to share fully in his joy. He will share his joy with us. So may that encourage you as you continue to do the work that he's called you to, that you would also share in his joy. So I'm just going to say a quick prayer. Father, I pray that you would help us, Lord, to recognize that everything that we have, you have given to us, and to go out and to make something with it, to make the most of what you have given us, God. May we go out, may we produce, may we trade, may we take the journey, may we not hide or hold back out of fear or out of doubt, but may we go forth, may we get on the ship, may we take the journey, and may we work diligently so that when you return, God, we will have something to lay at your feet, and so we can also share fully in your joy. And we thank you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thanks, friends, and we'll talk next time. Bye.